The inheritance? Amanda asked, her voice trembling. I could see her entire worldview crumbling. The will your father forced grandfather to sign is invalid, I said, my tone softening. The original will, which leaves everything to me, is the one that stands. So I get nothing? She asked in a small voice. But this time, it wasn't her usual spoiled tone. It was as if, for the first time, she was understanding the weight of reality. I could have been cruel in that moment. I could have remembered the triumphant look on her face as I was thrown out of the house. But that's not the person I want to be. We'll discuss our situation privately, I said instead. You were a pawn in your father's scheme too. He tried to turn us against each other for his own gain. Amanda nodded, tears streaming down her face. Stephanie, I'm so sorry. For taking your things, for being so smug. I just wanted my parents to love me, to notice me. Her voice trembled. But I see now. They were just using me. I was just a stupid puppet who didn't know anything. My name is Stephanie, and I'm 29 years old. I was supposed to be the sole heir to my grandfather, William. I was promised a $10 million inheritance and the family logistics company. But after he died, my own parents and my sister, Amanda, orchestrated the ultimate betrayal. They forged a new will, stripping me of everything that was rightfully mine. And when I challenged them, my father grabbed me by the hair and dragged me out of our home. You are no longer part of this family, he snarled. Thrown onto the gravel driveway, my knees bleeding, I warned them. You will regret this day. They had no idea what was coming for them. If you've ever been betrayed by your family, let me know in the comments. Be sure to like and subscribe. You won't want to miss how I turned this devastating betrayal into the most satisfying revenge story of all time. My grandfather, William Mercer, was more than just a grandfather. He was a true self-made man. As the son of immigrants, he built his logistics company, Mercer Shipping, from the ground up. He turned it into a multi-million-dollar enterprise that employed hundreds across 3 states. To me, he was the only person in my family who truly understood me. While my parents were busy and preoccupied with my sister Amanda's endless lessons, my grandfather always made time for me. Our sacred time was our weekly Sunday fishing trips to Morrison Lake. Sitting side by side on the quiet shore, he would share stories of his successes and failures in business. The secret to success isn't avoiding failure, Stephanie, he'd say, the corners of his eyes crinkling. It's having the courage to learn from it and try again. During summer breaks, he'd take me to the company, let me sit in on meetings, and teach me the complexities of international logistics. By the time I was 16, I could read a financial statement better than most business school graduates. The employees would smile knowingly when they saw me, whispering, "There's the future of Mercer Shipping." Our evenings were spent in his magnificent study. The floor-to-ceiling bookshelves were packed with business biographies and economics textbooks. He would read his favorites to me, teaching me lessons of leadership and integrity I'd never learn in school. One day, all of this will be yours, he would say, gesturing to the books, the company, the legacy he had built. Not because you're my granddaughter, but because you've earned it. I believed him completely. Why would I ever doubt him? He had never broken a promise to me in my life. My family dynamics were complicated. My father, Richard, had worked as the CFO of Mercer Shipping for 30 years. But he always felt inadequate, never quite living up to the expectations of his father-in-law. Every time my grandfather praised my business instincts, I could see the resentment simmering in his eyes. My mother, Patricia, was a former beauty queen. She had dedicated her life to marrying rich and maintaining her status in high society. Her attention was focused on my sister, Amanda, who adored appearances, gossip, and the superficial symbols of wealth. Amanda, 4 years my junior, was spoiled from birth and had no interest in anything that required actual effort. While I was studying business books, she was scrolling through social media. While I was interning at the company during the summer, she was lounging by the country club pool. And yet, for some reason, in my parents' eyes, she was the golden child. "Why can't you be more like your sister?" my mother would say, looking at the dirt under my nails after I'd returned from helping my grandfather in the garden. "Look at Amanda, always so proper." I gave up seeking their approval early on. Instead, I poured all my energy into making my grandfather proud. I graduated at the top of my high school class, earned a full scholarship to the Wharton School of Business, and graduated with top honors in business administration. All the while, I continued to work part-time at Mercer Shipping, learning every aspect of the business from the ground up. My dream was clear: to take over as CEO when my grandfather retired, modernize operations, and expand the company globally. By age 29, I was the Chief Operating Officer, effectively running the day-to-day operations. The employees respected me, not because I was the boss's granddaughter, but because I had earned their trust through hard work and fair leadership. I never asked for special treatment. I started in the mailroom, just like everyone else, and worked my way up. The only dark cloud was the rising tension at home. The more responsibility my grandfather gave me, the more hostile my father became. Dinner conversations turned into interrogations about my decisions at the company. "Do you really think expanding into the South American market is wise, given the political instability?" he'd ask in a condescending tone. "I've run the numbers and we have contingency plans," I'd reply, trying to keep my voice calm. "The potential for growth outweighs the risks." "We'll see what your grandfather thinks," he'd mutter, even though my grandfather had already approved my proposal. Meanwhile, Amanda would just smirk behind her wine glass, enjoying the show. At 24, she had accomplished nothing. Her life revolved around maintaining her social media presence and dating a string of increasingly wealthy men. Looking back, I missed the signs. The hushed conversations that stopped when I entered a room. My mother's sudden interest in the company, asking questions about revenue and assets. The increase in family-only dinners that I was excluded from, supposedly because I was always working late. The last normal day I remember was my 29th birthday. My grandfather took me to our favorite steakhouse and gave me an antique pocket watch that had belonged to his father. "For the next generation of Mercer leadership," he said, his eyes moist. "I couldn't be prouder of the woman you've become." I had no idea that within 3 months, everything would change. It was a Tuesday afternoon when I found him. I'd stopped by his office to discuss a new contract with a major retail chain, but instead, I found him on the floor, unconscious and breathing shallowly. It was a stroke, the doctor at the hospital told us. But the tests revealed something more serious: advanced pancreatic cancer. It's already spread to his liver. He has 6 months at best. My world fell apart. The man who had seemed indestructible was dying. When he regained consciousness, he spoke in a weak voice. "I want to be alone with my granddaughter." "Listen to me, Stephanie," he said, gripping my hand with surprising strength. "Things are going to get complicated. Only believe what I tell you directly. Promise me you'll be strong." "I promise," I whispered, fighting back tears. "I've made arrangements," he told me during a moment of relative clarity. "Everything is in place for you to take over." But what I hadn't anticipated was how quickly my family's behavior would change. Suddenly, my parents were at the hospital constantly. My mother, who had visited him maybe twice a year before the diagnosis, was now bringing him homemade soup every day. My father started bringing financial documents, closing the door whenever I entered the room. Even Amanda began asking him questions about the business, something she had never shown an interest in before. "I think it's important to understand the family legacy," she'd say. Most unsettling, my access to my grandfather became more and more restricted. The head nurses, clearly on my parents' instructions, began limiting my visiting hours, saying he needed his rest. Meanwhile, my parents and Amanda seemed to have unlimited access. One afternoon, I saw my grandfather's longtime lawyer, James Thornton, leaving the room. "Is everything okay?" "Why the legal advice?" I asked. Just updating some paperwork. Nothing to worry about, he replied evasively. When I went into the room, my grandfather seemed confused, but he brightened when he saw me. Don't you worry about all this legal mumbo-jumbo. I've taken care of you. But there was a flicker of anxiety in his eyes I'd never seen before. In the hallway, I overheard my father on the phone. 30 years. I've lived in this man's shadow for 30 years. His voice trembled. It's my time now. Stephanie is going to learn that blood alone doesn't mean a thing. Is Dad pressuring you about something? I asked my grandfather directly when I returned to the room. Families are complicated, Stephanie. Your father believes he's earned more control of the company after 30 years of service. As my grandfather's condition worsened, so did my anxiety. In his final week, he drifted in and out of consciousness. During one lucid moment, he beckoned me close. Remember the fishing spot and your favorite book in my study. The answers you need are there. Trust only Julia. I love you, Grandpa, I cried. I love you too, my brave girl. Watch your back with the family. Sometimes the ones closest to you are the ones who cut the deepest. Those were his last words to me. He slipped into a coma 2 days later, and 3 days after that, with all of us gathered around his bed, he passed away peacefully. A week after the funeral, we gathered for the reading of the will at James Thornton's office. I sat across from my parents and Amanda, who were dressed in appropriate morning attire. Although Amanda's designer black dress looked more suited for a fashion shoot than a solemn legal proceeding. James began to read, with a strange hesitation in his voice. I, William Edward Mercer, being of sound mind and body, do hereby revoke all former wills and codicils. I was confused. Revoke all former wills? My grandfather had told me the will that made me his primary beneficiary was ironclad. To my disbelief, this new will bequeathed his entire $10 million estate and the controlling shares of Mercer Shipping. All to Amanda. My father was named interim CEO to act as her guardian until she gained sufficient experience. I was completely cut out. I was left with a token, meaningless role in the company I had dedicated my life to. This is a mistake, I said, my voice trembling. Grandpa promised me the company. He spent my entire life training me for it. My father's face was a mask. Your grandfather made his own decisions, Stephanie. Perhaps he finally realized who truly had the company's best interests at heart. Or perhaps he finally saw through your act, Amanda added, a smirk playing on her lips. You always thought you were so special. Turns out, he had other plans. I felt sick. I'm going to fight this. I need to have this will investigated. My father laughed, a humorless sound. With what money? Your salary is terminated. Your apartment is company owned, and your car is a company lease. The gravity of the situation hit me then. They hadn't just stolen my inheritance and my job. They had systematically dismantled any means I had to fight back. And one more thing, my father added, his tone dangerous. This house now belongs to Amanda. I want you out in 24 hours. I went to my room in a daze. As I started to pack, I noticed my drawers had been rifled through, my belongings rearranged. My journal, where I'd recorded conversations with my grandfather, was gone. The folder containing the business plans we had developed together, gone. Even the files on my laptop had been wiped. They hadn't just betrayed me. They were actively destroying any evidence of my grandfather's true intentions. The next day, it got worse. The board has unanimously approved your termination, my mother announced, appearing in my room. Effective immediately. She has zero business experience. So how did Dad convince the board she was qualified to run a multinational shipping company? I demanded. Your sister has hidden depths. My mother's lips thinned. And the board respects your father's judgment. It's this attitude right here that's why your grandfather changed his mind about you, she continued. Always thinking you know better than everyone else. I faced her directly. We both know he didn't change his mind. Something happened in that hospital room when you were keeping me away from him. A flicker of guilt crossed her face, but was quickly replaced by a hardened look of contempt. That afternoon, as I was packing, my mother and Amanda appeared again. Their faces were a mixture of outrage and vengeful glee. "These clothes were purchased with family money," Amanda said, grabbing at my bags. "You have no right to them." "These are my personal belongings," I replied in disbelief. "I have clothes in here from high school." "Who paid for them?" my mother asked coldly. "Everything in this house belongs to the family, and you are no longer part of this family." The cruelty of their words hit me like a physical blow. After 29 years, they were trying to erase me completely, to strip me of everything I owned, as if it were their right. As we struggled over a bag, it ripped, spilling its contents onto the floor. Amanda immediately began rummaging through the items, pulling out anything she deemed valuable. "This necklace is mine now," she declared, holding up the pearl pendant my grandfather had given me for my 21st birthday. "That was a gift from Grandpa," I protested, reaching for it. When she yanked it away, something inside me snapped. As she reached for a wrapped picture frame, I screamed, "No, you've taken everything else. You don't get to take that too." "Richard!" my mother yelled. That's when my father appeared in the doorway. I hadn't even realized he was home. "What's the problem here?" he asked, his eyes taking in the scene with a calculated coldness. "She's causing a scene, as usual," my mother reported. My father's face hardened. "I told you to be out by sundown, not to be stealing family property." "Stealing? These are my clothes, my books, gifts given to me." I was shouting now. "Not anymore," he said simply. Then it all happened very fast. I was clutching a partially filled bag to my chest. My father crossed the room, his face a mask of cold fury, and grabbed a fistful of my hair, yanking hard. Pain exploded across my scalp as he began to drag me toward the door. I cried out, dropping the bag, trying to claw at his hands, but his grip only tightened. "Stop. You're hurting me," I screamed. "You did this to yourself," he snarled, continuing to pull me down the hall and toward the stairs. I stumbled and fell to my knees, but he didn't stop, just kept pulling, dragging me across the floor. My knees and elbows scraped on the marble. My mother and Amanda followed behind, carrying the rest of my bags. "Please," I begged, tears of pain and humiliation streaming down my face. "Don't do this." With a final heave, he shoved me violently outside. I landed hard on the driveway, the gravel digging into the palms of my hands. "You are not welcome in this house anymore," he declared, standing over me. "If you come back, I'll have you arrested for trespassing." My mother threw a small handbag down next to me. "Your wallet and your phone. The rest stays here." Through my tears, I could see Amanda standing in the doorway, a triumphant smirk on her face. 29 years of my life, all of it taken from me. I was thrown out onto the street with nothing. I found the strength to pull myself to my feet and looked at these strangers who were once my family. "You will regret this day," I said, my voice low but firm. "I promise you that." My father just scoffed. Empty threats from someone with nothing. Goodbye, Stephanie. In the sterile room of a cheap motel, I finally allowed myself to completely break down. I cried for my grandfather, for our relationship, for a betrayal I couldn't comprehend. But as exhaustion overtook me, one thought solidified. This was not the end of my story. The next morning, I remembered my grandfather's cryptic message. Remember the fishing spot. Check your favorite book. Trust only Julia. I called Julia Henderson, my grandfather's secretary. "Stephanie, are you okay?" "I've been so worried." Her voice was cautious. "Your father has instructed all employees not to have any contact with you." There was a pause. "But William was my friend. Let's meet." At a riverside cafe, Julia revealed the shocking truth. "The original will left everything to you. He showed it to me last year." But 3 weeks before he died, Richard brought in a new lawyer. Not James Thornton, who'd been William's attorney for decades, but someone new. My heart pounded. So, you're saying the new will might have been signed under duress or fraud? I believe so, she said, leaning closer. Your father was threatening to expose him for some kind of financial misconduct. William was furious and started recording their conversations. A glimmer of hope ignited. The recordings? They probably still exist. And he also set up a safe deposit box. He left a clue about where to find the key. Julia lowered her voice even more. He said, "We're Stephanie and I caught our first fish, Morrison Lake, the old oak tree where we sat when I was 7. My grandfather's last message was finally starting to make sense. For the first time since the night of the betrayal, I felt hope. The fight wasn't over. That afternoon, I took a bus to Morrison Lake. The park was quiet on a weekday as I made my way to our special fishing spot. The old oak tree stood just as it always had, a silent witness to countless conversations between my grandfather and me. I approached the familiar hollow at the base of its trunk, my heart pounding. This hollow had been our secret message box. As a child, I'd leave him notes like, "Grandpa, I hope we catch a fish." And he'd write back, "We'll catch a big one, Stephanie." Reaching inside, my fingers touched something cold and metallic. It was a small silver key, attached to the old fishing lure we used on our very first trip. He thought of everything, I whispered. But even with the key, a piece of the puzzle was missing. What did he mean by your favorite book? That night, at Julia's modest home, we found the answer. William asked me to store some of his personal things at my house after his diagnosis. Julia explained, pulling out a cardboard box. Books, photos, mementos he didn't want to get lost if things went bad. On top of the box was his prized possession, a leather-bound copy of The Art of War. The very book he'd given me for my 16th birthday. He mentioned this book specifically several times, Julia said. He said he'd modified it with a technique his father taught him. During the war, it wasn't uncommon to create secret compartments in books to hide important documents. I examined the book carefully. I noticed the binding was slightly thicker than it should be. Working my fingers along the spine, I felt a tiny catch. With a soft click, a hidden compartment sprang open. Inside was a USB drive and a folded piece of paper. The paper, in my grandfather's shaky handwriting, read, "Stephanie, the truth about Richard's betrayal. Use it wisely, my dear girl." My hands were shaking. Even at the end, he was protecting me. When I inserted the USB drive, dozens of audio files appeared. I clicked on the most recent one, and my grandfather's weak voice filled the room. "Grandfather, I won't do it, Richard. I won't betray Stephanie. Father, you don't have a choice, old man. Either you sign the new will, or I go public with the evidence. Your precious company will be destroyed, and your granddaughter will watch it happen. Grandfather, those documents are doctored. Father, it doesn't matter what I know. It matters what I can make the board and the authorities believe." As I listened to file after file, the full picture emerged. My father had fabricated evidence to make it look like my grandfather had been embezzling money. He then used that as blackmail to force him to sign the new will. "He was protecting you and the company," Julia said quietly. "He knew that if Richard went public with those false accusations, the damage to the company would be severe, and it would tarnish your reputation as well. So he sacrificed his own wishes to protect me," I whispered, tears swelling in my eyes. With the key from Morrison Lake in hand, I went to First National Bank. The safe deposit box contained everything I had hoped for. The original will leaving everything to me, documents attesting that the new will was signed under duress, and, most damning of all, actual proof of my father's own financial crimes. For years, my father had been siphoning over $2 million from Mercer Shipping into an offshore account. He did it by using a network of fake invoices and shell companies. "Dad," I murmured, reviewing the documents, "you are projecting your own crimes onto Grandpa." With Julia's introduction, I met with a fierce litigation attorney named Daniel Reeves. In his downtown office, I laid out the evidence I had gathered. "This is explosive," he said after reviewing the documents. Your father has committed multiple felonies: fraud, extortion, embezzlement. He could be facing serious prison time. And the will? I asked. We can absolutely have it overturned. The original will is still valid as the new one was signed under duress. He leaned forward. But you need to be prepared for a fight. I'm counting on it, I replied, a new determination hardening within me. He dragged me out by my hair. I want him to face the consequences of his actions. Over the next 2 weeks, we carefully built our case. We gathered sworn affidavits from my grandfather's doctors, testimony from hospital staff, and a forensic accounting of my father's embezzlement scheme. I reached out to key board members of the company and arranged for a special board meeting. The trap was set. On the morning of the board meeting, I walked confidently into the Mercer shipping headquarters. The gleaming tower of glass and steel had once felt like a second home. Ready? Daniel asked. I've been ready since the moment they threw me out, I replied, squaring my shoulders. The security guard at the front desk was stunned to see me. Ms. Mercer, I was told you no longer work here. That's one of the things we'll be clearing up today, I smiled. Julia appeared with a keycard. Stephanie is expected at the board meeting. The boardroom was full. My father sat at the head of the table, looking irritated. Amanda sat beside him, scrolling boredly on her phone. What is the meaning of this emergency meeting? My father was demanding of the board chairman, Walter Chen. I believe that's my cue, I said clearly, stepping into the room. The reaction was immediate. My father's head snapped up, his face twisted from shock to fury. Amanda gasped and dropped her phone. Security. This woman is trespassing, my father roared. Sit down, Richard, Walter said firmly. We invited her. There are serious matters we need to discuss. I calmly walked to the opposite end of the table from my father. About that termination. It was carried out under false pretenses, as was the reading of the will. Daniel distributed a folder to each person at the table. Inside was a summary of my father's embezzlement scheme, his extortion of my grandfather, and proof of the forged will. Who is this man? My father demanded, glaring at Daniel. Daniel Reeves, legal counsel for Stephanie Mercer. And this is evidence of serious misconduct that requires the board's immediate attention. As the board members opened the folders, their expressions shifted from curiosity to shock, and then to outrage. This is preposterous, my father blustered. These are fabrications. Are they? I asked quietly. Julia connected a laptop to the room's audio system. The recorded conversation between my grandfather and father filled the room, his threats echoing clearly. When it finished, the color had drained from my father's face. Amanda looked up, stunned. Dad, her voice trembled. What did you do? Did you really do this? Her face was pale, and her hands were shaking. Her earlier smugness had completely vanished, replaced by confusion and fear. I spoke into the silence. My grandfather built this company on integrity and fairness. In his final days, when he was vulnerable and dying, his own son-in-law betrayed those principles. As a hush fell over the boardroom, Amanda whispered, I didn't know. I really didn't know anything. Tears welled in her eyes. I placed my hands on the table and leaned forward. But my grandfather was smarter than we gave him credit for. He recorded everything, ensuring the truth would one day come out. Walter Chen closed his folder, looking grim. Richard, these are extremely serious accusations. They're all true, I stated firmly. Please turn to Section 3. For at least 5 years, he siphoned over $2 million into an offshore account. He did this using fake invoices and shell companies. Several board members gasped. My father's face had gone from red to gray. This is a trick, he said, but his voice lacked conviction. He could feel it all crumbling in his mind. The position he had built for 30 years, the control over his daughter, his ambitions for the future. He was consumed by the terror of it all collapsing. "It's not a trick. It's the truth," Daniel interjected, as two men in suits appeared in the doorway. "In fact, agents from the FBI's Economic Crimes Unit are here. They would like to ask you some questions about those offshore accounts." My father's eyes widened in terror. He looked around the table for an ally, but found none. Even Amanda had shifted her chair away from him. In that moment, he knew he was completely alone. "Richard Mercer," one of the FBA agents said formally, "we need to ask you some questions regarding potential embezzlement and securities fraud at Mercer Shipping. We need you to come with us. You can't do this," my father said desperately. "I'm the CEO." "Not anymore," Walter Chen replied, standing up. "As chairman of the board, I'm placing you on immediate administrative leave pending investigation." As the agents guided my stunned father toward the door, he stopped beside me. "You'll regret this," he whispered under his breath. "I'm still your father." I met his gaze evenly. "No, you lost that right. You lost it when you dragged me by my hair and threw me onto the street. A real father would never do that to his child." After my father was escorted away, Walter turned to Amanda. "Ms. Mercer, in light of these developments, your interim position is also terminated, effective immediately." "But the will? The inheritance?" Amanda asked, her voice trembling. I could see her entire worldview crumbling. "The will your father forced grandfather to sign is invalid," I said, my tone softening. "The original will, which leaves everything to me, is the one that stands." "So I get nothing?" she asked in a small voice. But this time, it wasn't her usual spoiled tone. It was as if, for the first time, she was understanding the weight of reality. I could have been cruel in that moment. I could have remembered the triumphant look on her face as I was thrown out of the house. But that's not the person I want to be. "We'll discuss our situation privately," I said instead. "You were a pawn in your father's scheme too. He tried to turn us against each other for his own gain." Amanda nodded, tears streaming down her face. "Stephanie, I'm so sorry. For taking your things, for being so smug. I just wanted my parents to love me, to notice me." Her voice trembled. "But I see now. They were just using me. I was just a stupid puppet who didn't know anything." In a unanimous vote, the board reinstated me as Chief Operating Officer and appointed me interim CEO. As the meeting adjourned, board members came up to shake my hand. "Your grandfather would be proud," Walter said quietly. "He always said you had a spine of steel. You proved it today." In the days that followed, the legal machinery moved forward relentlessly. My father was formally charged with fraud, embezzlement, and extortion. My mother faced lesser charges as an accomplice. The neighborhood buzzed with whispers of the Mercer disgrace. And while my father desperately called every lawyer he knew, no one would take his case. The original will was reinstated by the court, returning my inheritance and control of Mercer Shipping to me. I moved back into the family home, reclaiming my space and my memories. Amanda moved into an apartment in the city, taking her first steps toward independence. A month later, I visited my father in jail as he awaited trial. He looked smaller. His power and arrogance had been stripped away by the orange jumpsuit. "Did you come to gloat?" he asked. "No, I came to understand why. Why you hated me." After a long silence, he said, "I didn't hate you. I hated the way William looked at you. A way he never looked at me. So you decided to take everything from me. I decided to take what I deserved, what I had earned through years of loyalty." Dragging me out by my hair felt pretty personal, I noted. He looked away, almost ashamed. "I lost control. Save it for the judge," I said, standing up. "I came to tell you that despite everything you did, you failed. Grandpa's legacy is intact. The company is stronger than ever." As I turned to leave, he called out, "Will you visit again?" I paused without turning back. "I don't know. Some bridges, once you burn them, can't be rebuilt." 6 months passed. Mercer Shipping had not only survived the scandal, but was thriving under my leadership. I implemented the modernization plans my grandfather and I had developed, and we became an industry leader in sustainable shipping practices and expansion into emerging markets. My father was sentenced to 8 years in prison for fraud and embezzlement. My mother took a plea deal, received probation, and moved to Florida. My relationship with Amanda was carefully being repaired. She enrolled in business courses, saying, "I want to be someone of value on my own merit." I offered her an entry-level position in the marketing department, where her social media insights actually proved to be valuable. I started counseling with a therapist who specialized in family trauma. Her words, "Family is a matter of choice, not just blood," resonated with me. I recognized the true family that had formed around me. Julia, who had stood by me in my darkest hour. Daniel, who had helped me fight for justice. And the board members who had welcomed me back with respect and trust. On the anniversary of my grandfather William's death, I visited his grave. The simple granite headstone was engraved with the words he had chosen. What we do for ourselves dies with us. What we do for others and the world remains and is immortal. Next to his grave, I placed a small fishing lure. I kept my promise, Grandpa. I protected what you built. The company is stronger than ever. That night, I hosted a dinner for the people who had supported me. As we shared stories and laughter, I realized that these chosen individuals had become my true family. In a toast, I said, "A year ago, I thought I had lost everything. But while material things can be taken away, our character, our resilience, and our integrity can never be stolen." I raised my glass to family, the kind that isn't defined by blood, but by the people who stand by you when you need them most. Later, after my guests had left, I opened The Art of War in my grandfather's study. A passage he had underlined caught my eye. In the midst of chaos, there is also opportunity. How right he was. The chaos of betrayal had created the opportunity to discover my own strength and to create a family of my choosing. I thought about the scared, heartbroken woman I was on that first homeless night in the cheap motel. If I could talk to her now, I would tell her that our darkest moments often come just before our most profound growth. Standing at the window, looking out at the city lights, I felt a deep certainty that wherever my grandfather was, he knew, and he was proud. We did it, Grandpa. Not for the money or the power, but for the truth and for your honor. Greed can turn family into strangers, but resilience can turn strangers into a new kind of family. The betrayal that was meant to destroy me instead revealed what truly matters. Have you ever experienced a betrayal from someone you trusted? How did you find the strength to rebuild your life? If you found my journey inspiring, please give this video a like. Subscribe for more stories of resilience and redemption, and share this with someone who needs to know they're not alone in their struggles. Thank you for listening to my story. Remember, sometimes our greatest challenges lead to our most profound transformations.